So, the Sacramento Kings and the Indiana Pacers just pulled off a trade the other day to send Domantas Sabonis, Jeremy Lamb, and Justin Holiday to the Kings in return for Tyrese Haliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson. So, as a lifelong Pacers fan, I thought it'd be a good idea to make a video sharing my thoughts on it. Obviously, from the Pacers' perspective, this trade really signifies that they're going for a rebuild. They're trying to get younger. They're probably going to lose games. They just traded their best player away. So hopefully we can get a really high draft pick this year. We got a nice little core with Tyrese Haliburton, Chris Duarte. Miles Turner is still pretty young. And we have some tradable assets like Malcolm Brogdon, who technically can't be traded until April 18th, I think. But in the offseason, we can make a move with him. We got TJ Warren, some other veteran pieces. We've got an experienced coach in Rick Carlisle. So I think this really signifies they're going for a rebuild. But it shouldn't be too slow because we're already sort of building up that young talent on the team, and hopefully in a few years we can sort of try to contend again. But it's really interesting. Tyrese Haliburton's not a player I've watched a lot of so far. I mean, he's on the Kings, and I'm not exactly tuning into their games very often. But from what I've seen and what I've heard, he's a really promising young player. Hopefully he can be sort of that star guard of our future. I know he plays some pretty good defense. He's got great vision, and he's still developing everything, but his scoring's pretty solid too. So I think a combination of him with Miles Turner in the post could be pretty deadly. Duarte on the wing could be pretty nice. And I don't know much about these college prospects this year because I don't watch much college, but I know the big names like Jabari Smith, Chet Holmgren, Jaden Ivey, Paolo Banchero, stuff like that. So if we can bottom out in the Eastern Conference, we can definitely get a promising player. Although it'll be hard to bottom out since there's the Pistons and the Magic down there. But I think we can do it. I think we can really make a push. Now, from the Kings' perspective, this trade gets a little more interesting. I don't understand why they traded Haliburton. I know there was rumors that they were going to do a Fox for Sabonis trade, and even that seems a little iffy to me, but it made a little more sense than this one. Fox just signed that big contract. Haliburton is still very cheap for, I think, 2 or 3 more years. Plus, he's a restricted free agent, so you can just bring him back whenever. Obviously, Haliburton made it very clear that he wanted to stay in Sacramento and he wanted to win there, and that's a sentiment that almost no other player has shared ever. No one wants to play for Sacramento, especially in this last decade where they've been nothing but a dumpster fire. So trading away the one guy that really wanted to be there is definitely an interesting move. I remember seeing the interview he did where he first got traded, and it was his first Pacers press day. I think it just came out yesterday, and he talked about how disappointed he was that he was traded from Sacramento because he wanted to win there, and you could tell it really impacted him. So hopefully he brings that fire to the Pacers. But from the Kings' perspective, you're trading away this incredibly promising young player for Sabonis, who's very good, don't get me wrong. You know, I've seen firsthand the magic he can work. He's a consistent 20 and 14 guy if you let him do his thing. But how much does that really elevate you as a team? I'm not sure. The Kings, the way I look at their roster right now, Fox is obviously very good. Sabonis is very good. Barnes is a reliable player. But outside of that, Davion Mitchell's pretty young. Rashawn Holmes could be something, but most of this team isn't very good right now, and a lot of them aren't very young to be developed in the future. So I see this team really capping out at maybe a 7-8 seed, like a play-in team. At best, they might be a 6 seed at one point. They'll definitely be a playoff team, which, like, if that was their goal, then they accomplished it. They'll be a playoff team within the next 2 or 3 years, probably. But I don't know if that's really what you want to shoot for. Obviously, they've been in a rebuild for a long time, but being a middle-of-the-pack team is kind of the worst place to be in the NBA, because they're certainly not going to be good enough to compete for a championship, but they're not going to be bad enough to really get a high draft pick either. And the Kings have had some trouble in the past with evaluating talent and developing talent, as shown by a lot of their notable draft busts in the past, but I would rather continue in a rebuild and hopefully build a promising team and a winning culture than shoot for NBA purgatory, where you're constant, 7-8 seed getting bounced out in the first round, but you can't draft anyone to help your team because you're constantly picking in the bottom, half of the draft, maybe the 17th, 18th pick. and it's Sacramento, so they don't exactly have a lot of free agent targets every year. No matter how much money they might free up, it's not like they're going to sign any big names. Unless they really luck out and get Bronny, then they could get LeBron James, but that's going to be unlikely since they're about to be a playoff team in these next few years. So it doesn't really make sense to me why they'd want to do this trade. I guess just to shake things up and get something in Sacramento going, get some fans there, maybe start a winning culture. But, you know, they've got an interim coach right now, I believe. They don't even have maybe they do have a general manager. I'd have to definitely look into that. I remember Vlade Divac stepped down. They didn't fire him, but he stepped down, and I don't remember if they hired his replacement or not, but they don't have a developed organization right now, and I don't see how making the playoffs barely is really going to help develop them. It might be good for player morale, but that's about it. They're definitely not in an ideal position right now. But I think overall, as a Pacers fan, I'm very happy with this trade. It should be promising. We're going into a rebuild right now. I already said this stuff, but I'm really looking forward to these next few years. I want to see what we can do, players we can draft and bring in, and hopefully we can build something close to a championship team in these next few years instead of being stuck in purgatory again, because that was honestly terrible. But yeah, I just want to keep this video short. Just wanted to share my overall thoughts of the trade, and that's all I got for this video.